But first of all, I want to welcome you all to Bikeside, LA. And just a reminder that this is Los Angeles' only 501c4 bike lobby in LA. A little hand for Bikeside, LA. Hold on. I will. We'll get back to that. But thanks for the prompt. My manager here. More importantly than Bikeside, LA, though, I want to welcome you to America. And I came a long distance to get here. I'm Australian. And there's a Hungarian and a Romanian and a couple of other people said they weren't citizens, but Britain. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great place to be, and I'll tell you why. Because once you set your foot on American soil, you experience some freedoms like nowhere else. A long time ago, 1941. Who was there? Who remembers? Nobody. But that's okay. You didn't have to be there to experience the four freedoms that Franklin Delano Roosevelt spoke of in his State of the Union speech. He said America is a great place because of the freedom to worship, freedom from want, we've got the pizza here to prove it, freedom from fear, and freedom of speech. And these are the four freedoms that Norman Rockwell memorialized in these four paintings. For the cycling community, these freedoms are just part of what we thrive on or hang on. Now, of course, this is Reverend Jeremy taking confession at the Bicycle Temple. So I'm pretty pleased that we have the freedom of worship. I'm also free that we have the freedom from want. This is me here at the Microwave. Thank you very much. With my brand new long-haul trucker. So I think it's a pretty good thing that the community, the cycling community, has given us freedom from want with regard to transportation. Freedom from fear. Are we a fearless community or what?
That's Photoshop.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. Sorry for stepping in front of you. And of course, freedom of speech. And here we are at City Hall, a long way from the west side, but still a very worthwhile ride. Here we are with the Cyclists Bill of Rights and a bunch of people doing the Hungarian, what's it called? Salute, Hungarian salute.
Bike lift.
Oh, the bike lift.
Hungarian.
Boy, when you see 30,000 people in Budapest, in Romania, not so much. They throw the bikes over there. But the thing is, the one that he didn't mention is, and this is the most important freedom as far as I'm concerned, that's the freedom to move. And this is a very basic human freedom. The freedom of mobility. And I believe that our city government's obligation, responsibility, its only purpose for being here is to remove obstacles so that we can move freely in this great city, in this great land. So the Cyclists Bill of Rights, we didn't make them up. We didn't. They exist. And we began with a few whereas and a few therefore, and a therefore, which is that we claim these rights. Because the important thing to remember about your rights is they're yours. They were, they are, they will be, they exist, and they're yours. But it's up to you to claim them. And the first ones, quite simply, are the freedom to travel free of fear, safely and free of fear. I think this is a basic human right. I don't know if anybody's ever said, no, I disagree. You shouldn't be able to travel freely. You should live in fear. And nobody said that. This is a basic freedom, and yet we live in a city under siege. If you look at the traffic on our streets, it's a city under siege. So these rights sometimes get so tromped on that we find ourselves not just riding our bikes in the streets, but this is a die-in where we lay down on Glendale Boulevard. 300 cyclists lay down on Glendale Boulevard in a moment of silence to memorialize a hit-and-run incident on Glendale Boulevard where Jesus Castillo lost his life. Why? Because the brutal reality is we're not free to ride these streets free of fear. And that's something we've got to work on. When we've taken these rights, the Cyclists Bill of Rights to neighborhood councils, we've had these great conversations, and people don't realize often until we have this conversation what it's like. We've also taken the Cyclists Bill of Rights to the police department. This is the Cyclists LAPD task force that Sarah mentioned earlier. There she is. And there's Glenn Bailey. Oh my goodness. Lots of your friends are here working with the LAPD to see if we can come up with a better working relationship so that our streets really are free and so we can bring these rights to life. I'm moving through them quickly, but I've got copies for all of you so you can study Cyclists Bill of Rights. One thing to keep in mind, in the Cyclists Bill of Rights it mentions the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment. People always ask, why would you mention those two? And it's because When you see a bunch of pedestrians, you don't call the police and say, oh my God, there's pedestrians on the sidewalk. You better get down here right away. They're like everywhere. Because it just means perhaps there's like a sale at Nordstrom's, or maybe it's like holiday shopping season, or maybe it's just a great community that's walkable. Nancy and I live not too far from the 101, and on a regular basis, we feel prompted to call the police. Every Friday at 5 o'clock. They must be organized. They must be leaders. And I've seen you here before. So, there's no helicopter coming in. We've got to break it up. Go home. So if you're wondering why we put America's Bill of Rights in the Cyclists Bill of Rights, it's because it's so absurd that when you see a bunch of cyclists, oh my gosh, call the police, they're like hanging out, they're getting in the way, people are trying to buy gas, and there's a cyclist in the way, if you can imagine such a thing. Look how little the room is he's taken up. And yet, that's what we experience oftentimes when we get on the road and start going in the same direction with those cyclists. So there's a method to the madness, if you will. We put those things in there because it's important for us to remember this is a great country, that it comes with a Bill of Rights. When you set foot on American soil, you're covered by the Bill of Rights. And the Cyclists Bill of Rights doesn't invent anything. There are things that already exist, whether it's California Vehicle Code, agency policy, department policy, city policy, or the good old American Bill of Rights. Which brings us to the conclusion of the Cyclists Bill of Rights, and that is that we claim these rights simply by doing the easiest thing we can do to change the world, and that is by riding your bicycles on the streets of LA. There's no greater way to change the world than just simply to be really active on the streets, which is a constant, perpetual reminder that streets are for people. So, what can you do about this? Very quickly, take the Cyclists Bill of Rights to the neighborhood councils and community groups. Ask them to endorse it. In the process, you'll have a conversation, and great work starts with conversations. And again, you can take it to more community groups, because I made a mistake here apparently. And you can go to the police department, the sheriff's department, and you can go to the Metro and other transportation authorities. But the most important thing you can do after the other important things you can do, like ride your bike as much as you can everywhere all the time, is to support political candidates who support you and your rights. Because really there's no other reason to vote for them. So ask them, have you seen the Cyclists Bill of Rights? If not, give it to them. And by the way, if you can't vote, you can still get into debates with other people. So, and then participate and vote, or convince other people to vote, for those who support the Cyclists Bill of Rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. There's the Cyclists Bill of Rights. Before you go, I got a copy for you. If you'd like to find out more, BikeRidersCollective.com, CyclistBillOfRights.com, BikesideLA.com, and